All right, you're on.
Okay. Thanks, Mike, and welcome everyone. Mike said this is our first member webinar for 2024. We have a pretty good agenda for the whole year. I think things like AI and secure coding and some work around our SciAD conference and whatnot. So I think stay tuned and keep monitoring our website for all those activities. So today we have Dr. Vincent Nestler. He's the Associate Professor and Director for the Cybersecurity Center for the Principal Investigator for the NICE Challenge Project. And he is going to be covering the Virtual Cybersecurity Career Challenge overview. And I can tell you this was an excellent capstone opportunity. So I'll turn it over to you, Vincent.
Awesome. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And let me share my screen if somebody would be so kind. Okay, there we go. And I think that's that. Here we go. I assume everybody can see my see the slides. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through what the Cyber Career Challenge is, and then at the end, I'm going to explain who it's for and what makes it how students can be successful if they participate. So, the Cyber Career Challenge is something that we put together that tries to give the students a realistic experience of what it's going to be like to actually be in the workforce, to bring to bear all the various skills they've learned, whether hard or soft or managerial or coding, to bring it all together in an experience where they have to use those skills as part of a team to accomplish a business mission. So before we even begin with any of the actual objectives, we start off by having the students do a little reflection. They go to the NCyTE website, cyberindustry.org. If you're not familiar with it, it's a great website that kind of distills and makes it easier to navigate all the work roles and what the related tasks are. The NICS portal is certainly prettier and more detailed, but sometimes a little harder to get to the specific information that I want the students to be able to get to easily. So if you go to cyberindustry.org, on that website, it has all the work roles. And then you can easily say, well, here are the work roles, here's the definition of the work role, and here are the tasks that you're expected to be able to do in each of the work roles. I have them look at that. They have to look at all 52 work roles. I'm also going to be having them look at the DCWF, since that's an up-and-coming and more up-to-date, continually revised list. And then they have to identify 3 work roles that they're interested in. And then what are 3 tasks? Like, I like this work role. Well, system administrator. Okay, well, why do you like it? What are the things that you have to do as a system administrator that really interest you? Like, that you would say, when I wake up in the morning, this is what I want to have to do during the day, right? And so they identify those, and then they put that in a Qualtrics that helps me aggregate it, so I kind of have a feel of what the makeup of the group is. But more importantly, it helps them identify really well. Now that I've gone through this program of study, where do I fit within the 52? Am I more policy? Am I more tech ninja? Am I somewhere in between? Like, where do I fit in all this? And that's going to help them figure out what their either current skill set or desired skill set is, so that when they have to choose teams later, they can hopefully choose a team that's going to balance out with whatever needs to be done with what they're able to contribute. So the students are given, the students will be broken down into teams of about 4. I say about, sometimes there's 3. Depending on how things go, there it might be 5, but not usually. They're given a network of about 10 devices. It looks something like this. It'll be slightly modified. And the students have to get this network up and running to fulfill a business mission from soup to nuts. So this is the list. I think there's more than this, but this is basically the list of what has to be done to this network. They come up with a business concept. They have to create 3 products that are, that are goods, and 3 services that have to be on the website that you can actually purchase without money. But you can purchase up until you have to give a credit card. There should be a shopping cart. They have to show project management. They have to develop a Gantt chart, come up with a new network diagram that shows what they built. They have to use Red Hat as one of the servers and Red Hat as one of the workstations. They have to get all the workstations to join to the domain. Web server, database server, email server. They have to show that they did at least some scripting, which is much easier nowadays. They have to harden the network. They have to have an analytics dashboard that shows uptime, traffic, stuff like that. They should be able to back up and recover from a disaster on their database, only the database. So midweek, at some point, I may delete a database and see if they can recover. And they should do a vulnerability assessment. I've added recently, this wasn't in the last one, but I've added now the use of AI. So for the project, they're allowed, more so encouraged, to use AI for anything that they need to do. So if they have to configure a router, if they configure firewall, they're encouraged to use AI to do it. I will encourage them to try to use local AI over ChatGPT to start. That's kind of a longer discussion, but the short version is, as time goes on, people are not going to want to use ChatGPT for everything, because you don't want to have your information ingested and stuff that needs to be proprietary or private. You don't feel comfortable giving it to ChatGPT, so you should do it local. That'll also help them to understand what the limitations of local GPTs are. And if it doesn't work local, then they can go to ChatGPT and they can see the difference. That'll help them be more cogent when they're talking about the use of AI at their interviews, because 6 months from now, I expect that anybody going for an IT position will be expected to have some kind of understanding of how to use AI to do the things that they do. Again, longer conversation, happy to have that, but this is a chance for them to apply AI to speed up, enhance, improve what they're doing in the network. So this is what they have to do as a team. Usually students are overwhelmed. We give them this great African proverb about how to eat an elephant, one piece at a time. I also allow them to see presentations from prior years. So they get to hear all the students saying, "Oh, I wish I started sooner. Oh, I wish we had better communication. We should have. Oh, we should have never used Exchange. It's a horrible mail server. We did something else instead," or whatever it is that they came up with. So they can, I have no problem with people telling them this was a bad idea and why, and then they can kind of take that and use that as they make the decisions going forward. So there's an example of a Gantt chart that one team created. The nice thing about the Gantt chart is it forces the students to take the task list and not just look at it as tasks, but to take the time to think, well, it's not just a list of tasks because this task can't happen until that task is done first. So what are the dependencies? Okay, well, what's the timeline? Well, if I said it was going to take 5 days and now it takes 10, the task that I needed to do, and I thought I had 10 days, I now have 5 days to do if I'm going to get it done in time, right? So it helps them to kind of understand the interdependencies, the like, okay, it's not just I'm doing it and you're doing that. What I'm doing, everybody else is counting on because it's the basis for other things. I'm doing the web server. Well, if you're doing the web server, the other folks that are doing the shopping cart can't get that going until you get the web server up. Okay, is the web server compatible with the version of Windows that you're using or whatever? Well, PHP, like there's all that stuff that comes out, and the Gantt chart, having them have to build that helps them at least start to think that through. Now, there's multiple teams doing multiple things at the same time and can be going in any direction at any particular time. So one of the ways to manage the chaos is we use a Kanban. Kanban's a typical tool used by IT departments. It's a very simple kind of like board that has what needs to be done, what's being done, what's done, right? So what's on the list to get to do, who's working on what, and what's been completed. This is kind of what it looks like as they're working on it. So the color coding is each color refers to a particular student. So it's easy for me to look at the balance of the tags real quick. I can see who's moving the tags across. I can see who's got the most tags. If somebody's not pulling their weight, I can say, well, how come you only have one tag that you move? Are you still working? What's going on, right? This also helps. Students hate group work. Maybe that's my experience. Maybe you find that students love group work, but generally students often hate group work because there's always students not doing their thing, and there's no way to keep track. One of the ways that keeps students honest is the Kanban is documenting what's being done when throughout the semester, throughout the course. So it's very easy week by week for me to track who, just by looking at the colors, who's working, who's not. There's also 2 peer reviews. There's one halfway through and one at the end. They get an anonymous link, and then they have to basically Likert scale answer these questions on each of the students. They'll know that up front, so they'll know they're being rated on this. So hopefully that will also push them to say, oh, I better get to the meeting prepared. I better give, positive constructive, input. All this stuff. This also gives them an idea of what it means to be professional when you're working in a team, right? This is an example of the network diagram that was created by one team, how they interpreted it themselves and added, the IP addresses, things like that. The students are also required to, it's not just technical. So there's a whole, there's the project management piece with the Gantt chart. There's also doing compliance. So they'll be using the CSET tool to show to what level of compliance they are with whatever security standard that is appropriate for what they're doing. Stephen Miller does a great job talking them through that. He's done that a couple of times before. And he kind of walks them through how the tool works and how to use it. And it gives you these nice, pretty, colorful graphs that you can put in your PowerPoint slides to show what you've done. This culminates in a red team, orange team week. So it's a 10-week program. Around week 8, I'll have a red team will be pen testing their network. An orange team will be using their network. So they'll have access to their website, they'll order 10 things, and then they'll contact tech support and say, I really wanted 5, can you fix my order? They'll be an orange team, they'll be a pain in the butt, but they'll be able to assess customer service, right? Did you respond in time? Were you courteous? Were you able to help me with whatever I was doing? Was the website available when I needed it? Things like that. And then there's presentations. So for presentations, the blue team will say, this is what I built, this is what network, and by the way, we saw that the red team tried to do these things. The red team will then say, yes, we did those things. I don't know what you're talking about that. We didn't do that. But we got into this box. This is how we got in, and this is how you could prevent it from happening in the future. So there's kind of a back and forth there. The orange team will also say, we put in 10 requests for help. They answered 9 in a timely manner, and also give them some customer service feedback. At the end, after the pen test is done, there should be at least 1 week left where we do 2 important things. One is we go over the STAR method. So now that they've had this amazing experience, hopefully amazing experience, that's helped them to incorporate all the stuff they've learned in a realistic experience, they learn how to now communicate. So we'll have role plays where I'll be enrolled as a hiring manager. I'll say, so I see that on your resume, you're interested in being a cyber defense analyst. And I see that you worked as a cyber defense analyst in this simulation or whatever. Can you tell me something that you did that was a challenge and that you overcame? So, okay, situation, task, action, result, right? So I was in a team of 5 people. None of us knew what we were doing. We had a website. We had to work remotely. And then they kind of just explain it in the context of the STAR method. And this helps. This has been a very good tool. And Amazon uses it. Boeing uses it. There's a whole bunch of corporations that use this method for explaining this kind of thing. So they get some practice with that. And then they get a certificate suitable for framing. The certificate is actually not just a 1-pager, it's a 4-pager fold over certificate. So on the inside of the certificate will be what the network was, what the things they had to do was. And then on the bottom on the inside, this will be the network that they created, their team, and then the specific tasks they did. And what nice workforce framework task relates to what they did. So if a task is diagnose and troubleshoot network connectivity issues, they'll explain, where they did that and how they did that in one statement, and then it's documented there. And then so somebody could look at this and at an interview, they could literally bring this to the interview, and they could say, oh, so tell me how you troubleshot this network connectivity problem. Oh, the firewall had the wrong ACLs, it was blocking the port, we fixed it, and I went in, I fixed it, I changed the port, and then now it worked, right? Or they can kind of have that meaningful discussion with a prospective employer, and they can actually see by the engagement and discussion that the person didn't just put a bullet on the resume, they actually have they can support the thing that they said they can do, and they can have that in that discussion. We've had some, fairly wonderful testimonials. I only put 2 up here right now, but the students who make it through, and on the other side, it's almost always glowing. I had one student who, when they went through the experience, they went for a job interview, not just at a company, at probably one of the premier research labs in the nation, if not in the world, and explained, Kanban, this is how we had to set it up. I used this, how they did authentication, blah, 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 how they secured it, and they were so impressed with how articulate the person was and how much they were able to explain what they were able to do, they were hired. They got called up the next morning and to get hired. It was almost like, he said, it was almost like they were afraid I'd wind up getting picked up somewhere else, so they wanted to give me an offer as soon as possible. Students often feel like posers, and you hear the poser syndrome. One of the nice things that comes out is they go into this not knowing anything, and a lot of times they're working on stuff they've never seen before. And when they make it to the other side where they've been able to do it, it kind of flattens out the poser feeling, because they're like, well, if I could PF Sense, I didn't know what the hell that was, Viata router, I'd never seen that before, but they got it working. It makes them feel confident they can go to a job interview where they maybe have a different tech stack, but they're like, you know what, I know that I can learn quickly and figure out whatever it is you're doing because I've already done that. I don't have to know I don't have to know everything I need to know for the job you want to hire me for. I already know that I have the skill set to quickly come up to the level you need me at, whatever it is that you want me to do, right? And that's kind of, there's no way that you can put together a tech stack that's going to fit every job that they're going to go for. So better to go with the tech stack they're likely not going to see, almost, so that they feel like, okay, it doesn't matter what you give me, I can overcome that. So there's that. Okay, so that's kind of the art of what'll take place over 10 weeks. So now this is the important part, right? Because we want to try and recruit folks for this, but we want to make sure we're recruiting folks that have a good chance of success. Now, when we do this, a lot of times students don't succeed. Why don't they succeed? It's more work than they wanted to do. They get on a team that, this person went to Japan for 3 weeks in the middle of it. Sometimes there's family issues, health and stuff like that. That happens. But it's got to be a commitment. It's got to be like, I really want to do this. This is a crucible I want to get over so that I can be better for it on the other side. So who's this for? First, it should be students that are toward the end of their course of study. If they're just starting, it's probably not for them unless they came into the program with a certain amount of skills and they're on the CCDC team. They're already kind of like, they were playing with computers when they were in junior high school, and this is right up their alley, right? So we have to make sure that the student comes in with the requisite knowledge and drive. So I don't have an actual mathematical equation for this, but there's knowledge and there's drive. As long as, however, the knowledge is inadequate, if the drive is inversely proportional, they'll be fine. So it's possible for somebody to not know much, but they're like, I'm going to get this done and nothing's going to stop me. That works. Conversely, if they have all the knowledge, but they're not paying attention and they're doing it like lackadaisically, not going to work, right? So there's no accounting for the value of ganas, the desire. They have the desire, they'll make it happen. So that's a hard thing for you to measure, but when you're recruiting students, you have to keep that in mind. If they're committed, they'll probably do fine. If they're not wholeheartedly in this, then it's not so good. So they need to have time. They have to be self-motivated and highly engaged. And this is similar to a long-form CCDC. So if you're familiar with the CCDC, it's very similar to that. There's like injects, but they're giving them all up front. They're being attacked. They have to set up all, it's similar to it. It's not exactly the same. Pretty much everything that they're asked to do in this is as realistic as it gets. Sometimes the CCDC will ask you to do things that are kind of goofy that you'd never do in the real world. But And that's not a slight on the CCDC. It's just the CCDC is not a network admin challenge. It's more of a problem solving challenge that kind of has networking wrapped around it. But again, that's a longer conversation. What makes a student successful, a team successful, is probably first and foremost is having a professor / mentor. I think we can control for teams that were successful and had a mentor. If a team had a mentor, I think every team that had a mentor was successful. There are teams that were successful without a mentor, but every team that wasn't didn't have a mentor. So, and that's just loosely looking at over the last period of time. The mentor does not have to be a tech guru. It doesn't, they don't have to know how to do any of this stuff technically. They just have to be the calm, cool, collected person who will help talk them through challenges at times, ask the right questions for them to think about, give them some words of encouragement, like stick with it, you'll figure it out, don't worry about it. But having that person who they're kind of accountable for, that they don't want to disappoint, is, gold. And, who wants to disappoint Stephen Miller? His team, man, they always like ask him, like, what do you think? And he's like, and he would give them the encouragement, and they did spectacular, right? And I don't think necessarily his team was exceptionally brilliant past what maybe other teams were, but he was the cohesion that helped them to be successful, if that makes sense. I think it helps if they're from the same school, hopefully at least the same time zone. Otherwise, meeting, like, there's no way to do this unless you're meeting off time, right? So like, it's not just we meet once a week and you'll be good. This is, we meet once a week to kind of talk, but you all are doing many hours of work during the week on your own. And then when we get together, I'll be doing round robin to the team and say, so how are you doing? Oh, we can't figure out how to get the Red Hat server joined to the domain. That's, I either say, well, have you thought of this? Have you done? Or I might say, you know what? Team 1, team 3 figured that out. Why don't you guys go talk to team 3 and see how they got over that hump? This is not a competition. This is collaboration. So any team can look at any other team's Kanban. Any team can help any other team, but no team can do anything for any other. Like, they can't say, okay, let me have access to your network and fix it for you, right? They can't do that. And the team should be a balanced set of skills, right? So somebody should be more, the project management person, or somebody should be more the tech person, or they do both, but it should be kind of evened out. They should look at the list of problems that has to be taken care of and see who's going to do which. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, real quick, or as quick as I could do it by hitting the main points. So I'm gonna pause for questions. Is this on anything that I shared, and we can kind of engage that way. Any questions? Makes sense.
There's one question in the chat about this. What are the specific prior experiences or skills requirements?
So that's a moving target, right? Like or it depends. They should have the skill set for whatever they're going to be able to contribute. So like, if they're more project management oriented, they should have that skill set. Or again, if they don't have the skill set, they just have to be driven to learn it, right? So I'll have students that have never actually set up Active Directory. So do they need the Active Directory skill set coming in? No, but they need to have the time to watch the video and try to figure it out, set it up. It didn't work. Try again, set it up. Didn't work. Try again, set it up. It worked, right? So they don't have to know Active Directory. Certainly they need to know the basics of networking. They have to know the basics of how do you work with Windows, things like that, right? So I don't have a list of this is what you have to know going in. One of the benefits of the challenge is it's apocalyptic, and in the sense that the apocalypse means revealing, right? Everything is revealed. So when you go into this, all your weaknesses are revealed. It's like, I don't really know Linux. I thought I knew Windows, but I don't know Windows on an enterprise level, or it kind of reveals all that stuff, and then you have to take the time to say, okay, all these things I didn't know, the gaps in my learning knowledge, I'm going to fill it in now, trying to get this situation to work. So I know that doesn't answer the question directly, but that's kind of how you have to look at it. Do you make the team combination? So I choose the team. I have the teams choose in the most ridiculous way possible. After they've figured out what they want, I just have a free-for-all where I'll set up like 9 different rooms, breakout rooms, and the students can talk in this room, or they can say, hey, I'm going to that room if anybody's interested, and they just figure out their teams on their own. And if there's any stragglers, I try to put them together with someone. But that's how it's worked. They choose their own teams. And I tell the students, don't choose somebody. Always try to choose somebody who's smarter than you, right? Make sure you balance the skill set out, and then I let them figure it out on their own.
Is there a time frame when this is offered? There are some questions about capstones, and we're just trying to figure out this.
So this is a capstone at CSUSB. That's correct. We do this as a capstone. It's slightly different because he's it's over a semester. They have other classes going on at the same time, and then and I have my pen test class can attack my cap. So it's a little different, but it's essentially it's all the same basic ingredients. Does it receive course credit? You can get internship. You get a co-op credit, and I'm sure Singletary is going to talk to that in a bit. Are there students from both? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, about the internship. I mean, it's really up to your cybersecurity program and how your students completing the program. So they could use it for an internship, a co-op requirement, or they could use it for to get additional credits if they wanted to. And we did have a couple of students last year who used it for co-op credit. And that required them to get a contract from their institution, enroll for credits at their institution. Vinny worked with them to make sure that they were meeting the objectives that they needed for their contract. And an instructor co-signed with that. So if that's something that the student needs, we can work with each one of them individually on that.
So, and the certificate they get is, it's basically documentation that they did the things that they said they did, and fulfills what the contract was. What is Spirit? Instead of recruiting students, can we use this as a capstone for all our cyber students? Lovely idea. We don't have the resources yet for something like that. I know Dr. Colson. I don't know if any of you have heard of this guy, but Dr. Colson is doing some kind of shenanigans where he's trying to get California State to have a cyber range that might be able to accommodate something like this. I'm not sure, since some of you are in other states other than California, I can't even say why would you do that, but if you're in other states, I'm not sure how the range would accommodate that, but maybe, but there's a move to it, not this semester. Did you want to say anything about that, Tony?
No.
Okay. Lovely. How many students in each team? Probably 4. 3 to 5 is correct, but it'll be targeting 4. Do I make the team comment? I told you it's the chaos for that, but it works. In the end, it's worked. Can we stretch this to 20 weeks? That's probably a no at this point. If we can find other resources, maybe in the future, if there's enough request and demand for it, there's going to be a teacher training that's also, right now we just had a teacher training. We're going to try and have some other folks actually teach it. I'll kind of support the teachers that are teaching it, but we want to try and get more teachers involved and that might be something, if you're interested in, to let Mike know, and we'll see about putting you through the training. It might just be as simple as we meet a few times before the cyber challenge, and then you become one of the mentors for a team and kind of work them through and see all the ins and outs of how this is working. And then that'll help you better teach the class. By the way, there's no procedural teaching. So I don't say, okay, this is how, all right, everybody, here's how we do Active Directory, and I walk them through this. None of that. So don't feel like you need to know routing, switching, Python. You don't have to know any of this stuff. You only need to know how to manage chaos, which as professors, I think we all kind of have that baked in with what we do on a regular basis. So yeah.
One
Go ahead.
point I would make is I think putting it in it's about 160 work hours over 10 weeks. I think putting that kind of pressure on the students is really good from a potentially going into a work environment. I think you can say, well, I did this and can impress an employer, I think, by the fact that you did this in a real tight time frame. And the feedback I had from our students was they were really afraid, you might say, at first, but it really motivated them to make sure they had their deliveries within that time frame. And I think that's an important skill that you need, or I don't know what else you'd call it, but I think it's important that you keep it at that shorter window, in my opinion. And actually, we have a 16-week capstone. We prepare students using a nice challenge throughout our program, but there's some nice challenges that we use before the career challenge, just so you'll know. Anyway.
So here's a good question, and there's two questions. I'm going to answer them together. March 4th to 9th is the time frame we're meeting. I will put out a doodle poll once we have the students that are selected to say what day of the week is best for us to meet. We'll meet once a week for about 2 hours, right? So maybe it'll be late in the afternoon, maybe it'll be on a Thursday or Wednesday, I don't know. So we'll meet for 2 hours. The first few sessions will be me yap heavy. It'll be me kind of talking through and guiding them as much as possible. But once they're rolling, when we meet, there's maybe some admin talk at the beginning. Then I break them into breakout rooms. And then myself and maybe some other folks will go to each breakout room and check in with them and say, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Like what's going on? Where are your pain points? What do you need some guidance with? Are there any problems networking that I need, that maybe our infrastructure that I have to fix? So that's so there's no real recording there. That's just, kind of 1-on-5 or 1-on-4 interaction to kind of talk them through problems or find two teams that have the same problem, get them to work together, or a team that solved the problem to help them help somebody else over their hump, things like that. So there aren't a bunch of recordings after, the first couple of weeks. And yes, it's flexible as long as at least one person from each team makes it. You can kind of get away with it. But teams that don't, you know, like if the team, oh, nobody showed up, or one person showed up, but they don't know where the rest of their team is, no chance. If they, you know, say, oh yeah, I want to do this, and then they don't get started until week 4, they got no chance, right? It's like, it's not, there's no way to, it's not something you can write a paper at the last week and then and then fix it. So there's just too much work to do, and there's too many dependencies in the work, right? You can't just build a network immediately. If the Active Directory is not up, you're done, right? You can't get any, okay, well, you can't do anything until Active Directory is going, right? Stuff like that. Or something to that effect. Does that answer your questions?
Can I comment on the perspective I had with
Yeah,
our
please.
team?
Please.
So I didn't meet with them all the time because they met sometimes 6 or 7 times a week. On the weekends and the evenings, I would try to make as many meetings as if they needed me. I didn't want to try to interfere in some of the meetings. They just wanted to work it out among themselves. But this is an intensive project, but I think it's well worth the students. And the NCL helped. I will point that out to you. Said the CCDC, but NCL also, our students said, well, I didn't even know how to do this, but I know how to go out and find answers.
The main stuff that'll take place will probably happen late April. It won't be the last meeting, I don't think. So it shouldn't be finals week. We're gonna try to get everything done by week 8 or 9. So should be late April. Other questions? So the part of the purpose of this is I want to encourage you all to, you know, hopefully as a result of listening to this experience that, you know, students can potentially have, to think of who would be a good fit for it. You know, if you have some hot shots, certainly you should hit them up if they have, you know, some tortoise in the hair, right? If they're a hot shot, they have a lot, but they're not really like focused. They might not do as well as the tortoise, who doesn't have quite the same speed, but they're determined to make it across the finish line, right? So, you know, give some thought to that, and, you know, recommend them. And if you can mentor them or be at least the you know, cohesive element, the Stephen Miller of the team, that'd be great. Or have somebody that could do it, so that there's somebody that they're accountable to, that's going to check. Have you guys met this week? Have you guys figured out the Active Directory problem, and so on? That would be also great. So again, I open the floor to questions, comments, concerns, moans, groans, pains, aches, rashes.
Any other questions?
How about, does this sound like a worthwhile, interesting thing that you would want to know more about, or teach, or have our students work with? Just checking.
I believe that is worthwhile building one, learning how to do it, and actually implementing it, at least at my university.
Okay, great.
From the competency perspective too, for CAE schools, this can be a way to help look at different, you have the work roles, you have tasks, so you might be able to write some competency statements around that for your capstone class or whatever. If it meets enough students. But like we just now this semester is going to incorporate this into the capstone if we can, but it may not cover every student. So that,
And for what it's worth, there's been guidance that's come down from the White House expressing that they want proof of that government agencies need to have the people that they hire prove competence, right? The certificate itself is kind of a stamp of proof of competence, and is an easy item to look at and interact with the person and question them to say, did you really do this? Show me that, you know, what you did and what you know. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna,
Hey, Vincent,
yeah.
this is John. Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned there's 10 elements in the network that the students have to put together, terminals, servers, routers, all that. Is there like virtual resources that they can virtualize all of this, or how many actual
All of
hardware?
this is on VMware backend.
Ah,
So we have a vSphere backend. Now, for what it's for, it's neither here nor there, but for right now. But VMware was recently purchased by Broadcom, and Broadcom apparently has a knack for blowing things up. So we're already looking at moving to Proxmox backend, if you know if that means anything to you. So we have the hardware, and we may shift to a different software. And I'm only mentioning that to say, you know, we use VMware, but Proxmox is free, although VMware is free for us as an education institution. But that's something also that's readily available if you wanted to do something like this locally, right? You could, you know, I'm going to be serving, you know, dozens of students but you don't need that kind of infrastructure if you wanted to do something like this more local. That's another conversation if you wanted to do that.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, anybody else? Before I turn it back to Singletary.
Hey, one thing I want to say is that, again, thanks for everybody for attending. And I know you have some students who are interested in forming a team for this year's challenge, and we're openly recruiting for those folks right now. So I'm going to drop some links in the chat, and these are two dates that we have that are coming up, February 12th and February 13th, where the students can attend an information session. So we'll go over the whole cyber career challenge again with the students at that session, just to make, because we really want them to understand what the commitment is, 160 hours, you know, how to form a team, you know, knowing that they're going to have your support. So please let them know about those two dates, and this recording will be available to share with your group.
Chelsea wants to know if we'll share this video with the ethical hacking team. You can. If you're not, I'll say this now and then we'll follow up later if there's lots of interest. If you have a group of students that are good ethical hackers, that means they're not like, oh, I just took one class and I'm ready, but like they have some chops and they really want to have something to practice on, I would consider bringing them on board, and they could be part of the red team, so they can get that experience, because sometimes getting good red teaming experience is hard. So this might be an opportunity for some red teamers to get some experience. Maybe down the road we'll have a cyber ethical hacking challenge and do something concurrent where we're teaching ethical hacking and then have that attack this one. We're not there yet, but that might be something that we could do down the road. All right, Singletary, it's yours, I guess.
All right, thanks.
I'll stop sharing.
Well, again, everybody, thank you for coming to today's meeting, and I'm gonna throw in one link in here again. I hope you will fill out our survey. Just to reiterate, I want to thank Vincent for giving that presentation today. And we've really had some great teams who've gone through this over the last couple of years. This is our third iteration of doing this. It's going to be really important that the students have your support. So we're going to also have a form that we'll send out to all the instructors, asking them to submit an endorsement on their students' behalf. Again, part of it is that we want you to be a mentor, be somebody that the student can talk to and troubleshoot. So if we can have that, that would be awesome. Let me do one thing. I'm going to throw in plug in the NCyTE Center. I'm doing all this by myself today. My computer's not working. So what I'd like to say is I will send out these links to everybody after the meeting. I appreciate you, everybody, for attending today and making it through the weather, tracking whatever you had to do to get out here and visit us today. So Stephen, do you have anything else that you want to add for today?
No, just thanks, Vincent, for informing everyone about this great opportunity for students. And thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for attending. We'll see you next month for an AI session. I think, is it AI? Not sure. Yeah.
Chelsea, can you give, I'm gonna give you my email address, and Chelsea just ping me on that. And my assistant, who will make sure that I don't miss it. And my assistant's email address is Tony Colson at. All right.
All right,
Thanks so much,
everybody.
folks. Have a good
Thank
one.
You
You
too.
too.
Till next time. All right. Anything we need to talk about right now, real quick? I have 2 minutes. Singletary.
I don't think so, Vincent. I think we can catch up next week if you only have 2 minutes.
But yeah, I think thinking about the last three sections, the last 3 times we did this, I agree. I think the mentor, you could do it without one, but every time there was one, they made it to the finish line.
I think it's a really important component, and I'm glad Stephen was able to speak to that a little bit because he was a key for helping his team overcome some of the challenges that they had. So
I was hoping to hear from Rashida. She was smiling the whole time. Like she was smiling. I was like, is that a picture, or is she just like stuck in smile mode? She was like smiling, and then every now and again I see who else. Oh no, she's smiling. That's
Oh
a
my
person.
goodness. Thank you, guys. This was so great. I am just a new student to cybersecurity, and I wanted to see what can I do outside of the lab to really feel what you was talking about. And Vincent, this is you.
Yeah.
Great presentation. You are so